Every time we talk about humanity's future, one thing that makes no difference is your religion. In this video, I'll give you 2 reasons why I say that. And then I'll explain how I got enlightenment and what enlightenment actually is. And I might make a passing reference to Ashtvakra, who was a son of a Hindu priest in prehistoric times. That's when I'll be explaining what enlightenment is about. Now, the first reason why religion makes no difference to humanity's future. Doesn't matter who you are or where you live. Most of the people, most of the time, do most of the things mostly correct. Now, I've used a lot of mostly in this sentence, but that's to signify that at any given time, in any given community, most of the things would be the right things that need to happen. Very few people do the wrong things at any given time, which is why this world is a good place to live in. Whenever this delicate balance fails, the society itself fails. And it fails until such point when most of the people realize that this is the new right thing in the society, and then the society emerges with a new norm. To explain this with 2 examples. First example, if you go to Bali in Indonesia, you'll be surprised at how people deal with a traffic light, a traffic signal. In Australia and United States and other developed countries, orange light means proceed carefully and red light means you stop. You can't jump a red light. But in Bali, red light actually means that you have 5 seconds to go across, which is surprising for an outsider. Now, what would have happened? Red light signals would have been introduced with the same intention that they are everywhere else, but people probably didn't follow that red light signal. So people kept on doing the wrong thing, and then it became the norm. People started to think that, okay, even if the light is red, you get 5 seconds to go across. As long as you know this and you are in Bali and you do what locals are doing, you'll be fine. The moment you stop at a red light and be too quick going through the green light, you'll be in trouble yourself and you'll create trouble for others. Because the right thing over there is you get 5 seconds after the red light to go across. So most of the people do most of the right thing according to that society, but that society is still a very good place to live in as well as drive in. I've myself ridden a motorbike there on roads, and I was there for like just a few days. But that's just to show that most of the people do most of the things right most of the time at any given time. The second example, let me take of Middle East, particularly Iraq and Syria, where IS is doing its own dirty work, dirty thing. Now, that society has collapsed because most of the people over there are doing the wrong thing. Now, you'll ask me, IS is not the majority but the minority. But that's not the problem. The problem is when someone brings war to your society, your only job as a human being is to defend your society. But the problem, as I've said elsewhere in another video, majority are also cowards who only want to live their life. They only want to live. They don't fight back. And that's what's gone wrong there. IS is a minority which is waging a stupid war. But the majority also acted cowardly and didn't fight back. Now, of course, there is Iraqi army fighting them, and of course, it's supported by allies. But the people who are actually living in those cities which were taken over by IS, they didn't fight them back. They wanted to live. They did the wrong thing. They didn't fight for their land. That's why their society has collapsed. And it will continue to, of course, it will stop collapsing once IS collapses. But think of Afghanistan. When Taliban came to power, everything Taliban did was wrong according to our standards. But for those people, it became the normal thing. So if you had gone to Afghanistan in that time and knowing what is right thing to do over there, you would have been fine. You go to Saudi Arabia, it has got some very strict rules which don't sit well with Western thinking. But if you are a Westerner and you know what is the right thing to do in Saudi Arabia, you're fine. So most of the people over there do the right thing according to that community. So which is what my first point is, that it doesn't matter what your religion is. At any given time, in any given community, most of the people will do most of the things mostly right most of the time. Secondly, I've been saying this for a while now. There is no God, there was no God, there never will be any God. Now, of course, those who believe in some God, any God, by any name you call, they won't like what I'm saying. But let me explain what I'm saying in two ways. One, by asking you questions and showing you what will force you to think about it. And two, I'll explain you what enlightenment actually is. So the first thing is, those who believe in some God believe that everything was created by God. If everything has to be created by someone, who created that creator? And if you say that the creator came out of nothing on its own, then why can't everything else come out on its own? Why is it that everything wasn't always there and everything has just evolved or degenerated in its natural course? Why is it hard to accept? Now I'll get to this in a bit more detail, but let me just briefly touch on Ashtvakra at this point. Now, I didn't know anything about Ashtvakra. It's what my brother has told me. We were having a chat about this God and other religious stuff, and about 2 or 3 months back, that's when he mentioned Ashtvakra and what he had mentioned. Now, I'm not sure if my brother's version is correct about Ashtvakra, but this is what we talked about. So the king of his time, and this is prehistoric times, King Janaka, who was the father of Sita, who was the wife of Lord Rama. So he once wanted to know the truth about existence, how far the universe extends and all that stuff, and other things associated with human mind, body and soul. And the priesthood of his time couldn't satisfy him with their answer until someone told him about Ashtvakra, who was a handicapped son of Hindu priest couple, and he had very radical views, different from the others. And King Janaka called him, and this is what my brother has told me, that he explained to the king that this universe extends so far that there is no end, and where the universe ends, there's just white silent space, and there's nothing but peace over there. There's no sound, nothing. This is what my brother has told me was Ashtavakra's explanation to the king. And this actually was my starting point of enlightenment. Now, but it was a different scenario with me. Now, I was going through some tough emotional times until very recently, and of course I was a firm believer in God, and I really went into the praying thing really deeply. And when I used to pray, there was so much stress in my life that I started imagining myself sitting outside this universe, not inside this universe, but outside this universe. Outside this earth, outside this solar system, outside this galaxy, outside this universe. And I imagined a white space. It's not that my prayer had uplifted me out of this universe. It's just I started to imagine myself to be sitting outside the universe, surrounded by a white space. Now, if you have flown through clouds and you have seen whiteness all around, or if you see fog or mist, it was white like that, but Unlike clouds or fog where you can't see beyond a few meters, you could see as far as you could in that space. It looks like fog or mist because it's white, just everything is just white, there's no other color. And then I started to imagine a white source of light like a sun, but cool white light over there, which was the source of all energy. And while I was sitting there, universe was nothing more than a tiny dirty black dot on my side. So every time I would pray, I would imagine myself sitting in that place. And then after finishing my prayers, I would imagine myself having returned into the universe. And this was what Ashtvakra was talking about. But this is not a place where someone had lifted me out. It was just what I imagined. I can imagine that right now standing here. It's just my imagination. But that was the starting point of my enlightenment. That's when I thought, okay, if this is what exists outside this universe, what exists outside this place? And what exists outside that? So now let's go back to the God who created everything. Imagine yourself before everything has actually come into existence. And you are there and you're looking at God coming out of nothing. The moment you start seeing God emerging out of nothing, that's when you should realize that what you are imagining is not actually nothing, but a three-dimensional empty space. So God did not create everything. There was already a space there. Who created that space? If everything has to be created by someone, why is that space over there? And what is that space? And if that space wasn't there, there was nothing, what would have that true nothing been? It was hard to understand what true nothing is, but once I understood, that was my enlightenment point. And I realized nobody created everything, but everything was always there. But that is not all about nothing. Let me make another statement. Everything is nothing and nothing is everything. What do I mean? When I lift my finger like this, there's nothing on my fingertip. But I assure you, I don't even know how many universes are there right on my fingertip. I know you're surprised by what I'm saying. Universe on my fingertip. In our universe, everything is made up of atoms, molecules, and mixtures and stuff like that. Atoms themselves are made up of electrons and protons. We have done experiments and broken down electrons and protons into further smaller particles called quarks. Now the only problem is, we all know how bats and dogs can listen to sounds which we humans can't, because our ears are not designed to hear those sounds. We can detect X-rays and many other radiations using electronic devices or different sensitive devices, but we cannot see those rays. What appears black to us might not be black for something else. It might be white for something else. We cannot see that because we are not designed to detect that. Everything that exists in a space is not capable of detecting what that black thing is, but something else at another level of existence might be able to detect that. Now before you get lost, let's go back to the universe on my fingertip thing. All the instruments we use at the end of the day will have to be made up of atoms that make up our level of existence. What we can at best detect is what makes up those atoms, which is electrons and protons, and we might be able to break them into quarks, but we cannot go any smaller than that. Our limitation is the atoms that make up this existence, but that does not mean they are the smallest things. Quarks are themselves made up of something. If we were as small as quarks, we would know everything making up the quarks, and we might have been able to see what is even smaller than that. So just like we can keep going outside this universe and see another space, and then go outside that space and find another space, if we keep going smaller and smaller, we can go so small that what looks like nothing on my fingertip would appear as huge as the universe for us if we were to go that small. Which is why what is nothing to me could be everything for something else, for some other level of creation. Which is why there are many three dimensions inside this three dimension. So nothing is everything and everything is nothing. Now I know you can't, I still can't make you realize what true nothing is, but if there was true nothing, then nothing could have emerged out of that true nothing, not even God. So nobody created everything. But still people want to believe in God. So let me explain this with this very simple example. Look around yourself in your community. Look at the small kids. They know everything about God. They know all the good things God will give to them if they are good. They know all the bad things God will do to them if they are bad. They know about heaven. They know about hell. But have they ever seen any of that? The answer, of course, is no. How do they know it? We have told them. We have told them that this is the absolute truth. Everything was created by God. You cannot question this truth. If you question this truth, God is going to do really nasty things to you. We have filled them up with fear. We have told them this is the absolute truth. We have told them you cannot question this truth and you are going to believe this truth. But have we ourselves ever seen God? The answer is no. And then again, how do we know about God? Because our parents told us the same thing. Have our parents ever seen God? No. How do they know? Their parents told them. And that's how the story about God goes. The thing is, how do you know there is God? Well, once you die, you'll know if there is God or there is no God. Well, are you dead? If you are not dead, how do you know there is God? You haven't seen God. And how many dead people have come back to life that have told you there is God? We still haven't been able to fully understand human body. Chemical reactions make up human body. The memories in our brain are stored in the form of chemicals. When a person dies, their cells don't die just like that. The cells stay alive for some time. Or they stop functioning, but they just don't dry out. It's not like the person is dead and everything has dried out. It's just that the heart has stopped pumping blood to lungs, which means that the blood is not getting new oxygen, and that blood is not going to the brain with oxygen, and because of the lack of oxygen, brain is not functioning anymore. If something happens and kickstarts that reaction again, oxygen flows to the brain, and brain sends some signal to the heart to start beating again, or heart starts pumping somehow again and starts flowing brain again, the cells that wouldn't have died straight away can again come back to life. And that's how some people come back to life. People who wake up like that, they see imagining white space or things like that. Well, just like I have imagined white space, you can imagine anything. When you go to sleep, you see dreams, and dreams feel like they are hours and months long when you could have barely slept for like 5 minutes. Or you could have been dreaming for hours, and when you wake up, you just think like, oh, it was just a 2 minute dream. Your brain does not follow the time sequence. It just shows you what you want. It doesn't even show you. It's just the chemical reactions that happen in your brain. They might have happened in a quick time, or they might have happened over a long time. You have no sense of time once you are asleep, or your brain is so not working according to the time. So when people die, perhaps just before their brain stops functioning, just to ease the agony of the moment, their brain shows them some image, which is what they remember when they wake up. But anyway, that is not the only thing. Now, as I was talking about kids knowing everything about God, the problem is they are going to teach the same things to their kids. And the worst part is, many of them would be ready to die in the name of whatever God they believe in, and many more would be ready to kill others in the name of the same God. Now, I don't know how you are going to sort of mix what I have said today with everything every religion in this world has told. the questions that I have raised in this video, which religion answers these questions? I would like to know. It's I was once talking to a street preacher who was saying that, have you ever lied? I said, yes. He said, were you ever caught? I said, no. He said, then you should be scared. God will punish you. I said, no, I'm not scared. God will punish me only if I believe, for me to believe God will punish me, I'll first have to believe there is God. I don't believe there is God. Nobody's going to punish me. What is conscience? When you are about to do something and that something is going to affect others, you know that if someone else was to do the same thing and you were the one going to be affected, you wouldn't like that effect and you would want that person not to do that thing, you're going to do something wrong. And that's what the conscience is. That's what tells you that you shouldn't do this because you wouldn't like someone else doing this to you. This is what morality is. Some people have strong morality, they won't do the wrong thing. Some people have weak morality, they'll still do. They say, I don't care. That's what morality is for me. Of course, if you want to imagine that there is God and you'll find God by praying to Him, I have got 10 imaginary friends. Try finding them. Think, people. Think.